Town manager report.
Good evening. I'll make this brief since we did have a long agenda tonight. I did want to direct everyone's attention to the PAR report. A couple of pieces have been moving along. The first one is just to draw everyone's attention to the work of the Economic Development Commission. We have asked them to develop some parameters for the ARPA funds that we're going to be making available to small businesses. And so that will be something that will be coming out hopefully for the summer that the Town Council will then be able to review, and then we will be putting that out to the public. Secondary to that is we also had an allotment set aside for nonprofits. Those parameters have yet to be determined because we're trying to find the right mix of people in order to do that where there isn't a conflict with people who are already involved in nonprofits, because we don't want anyone to not be able to apply. Also, you will see within your packet that we're going out to bid for the demolition of Lamagna and Strand. Mr. Wilcox has also included the quarterly report on expenditures. And I just did want to take a minute in terms of the Lamagna Strand. The assistant town manager and I did meet Mr. Wiley last week after he expressed some concerns over an interaction with some town employees and what was related to him. We did visit his home where he's renovating. It was actually the Bigelow Clubhouse. And so it's extremely historic. He has done a great job. It's a wonderful property with great bones. We have worked with staff to date, and we are not going to condone what was just not a great parking situation at Bigelow, and we've moved it so that is going to be adjacent to the property. So any of his tenants who do have need for visitors, medical visits, or their own vehicles will be able to park right next door, and we're going to alter what is in fact going to be the staging area.
I will not relinquish.
I'm not going to speak to the legal issues in terms of the easement, but what you're doing tonight is just the MOU in terms of entering a relationship and thus conversations with them. I will say, though, that any kind of demolition that occurs right now, the way those buildings are constructed, the Strand literally sits on Mr. Riley's property line, which is a very difficult situation. So some of the demolition issues are surrounding how to protect his property and the property of his neighbors during that difficult process. However, any new construction that happens has to adhere to the new regulations where there'll be a very healthy setback. So there's all of that is under consideration. Just as a reminder, the MOU is really a kind of get-to-know-us type of relationship. It is not legally binding. There is a lot that can go into protecting people like Mr. Riley, the town, and anybody else that's in that vicinity. So those are some of the things that have transpired since last week. I also did want to mention that the Neighborhood Assistance Act that you heard about at public participation is on your agenda as item L. We are just a pass-through for that, but we were able to accommodate St. Patrick's Church so that they can apply as well. And in terms of the assessment issues, I think we all can agree tonight that there is definitely a need for an independent review. And what we did in the interim since our last meeting, when Councilor Ludwig said that it needed to be pushed forward and gave us some ideas about what he thought that looked like, we took that to heart. We did talk to some of you about what you thought it looked like as well. And I guess what we can be guilty of is being a little aggressive in how we went about and pursued it. This is a very technical nature of as you can tell. There's information and technical issues that go into the revaluation and the assessment that none of us up here are experts on. And so we felt strongly that going out and creating a pathway in order to evaluate who actually has that skill, has the availability, and doesn't have a conflict would be the appropriate way to go and present that to you tonight. So we did some work, and I will yield to the town attorney so he could maybe assuage your concerns a little bit about the process. It was not meant to co-opt the process. It was meant to ease the process, because this is not something that is an easy sell. There's a very finite number of people who would have been qualified in order to do this that would have met our high standards of what we would like done.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Madam Town Manager. And I know there's been a call to perhaps discuss this in executive session, and quite frankly, at first blush, I'm not sure there's a readily available exception to go into executive to discuss it. Certainly not tonight. It's not on the agenda. So let me just weigh in, because there's been a lot said. as your town attorney. 3 weeks ago, over the long holiday weekend, we received the BAA report, which raised substantial issues. 2 weeks ago at the council meeting, we heard additional concerns which raised substantial issues, and we heard the call for an independent review. And so I was tasked with, all right, make recommendations. How do we do this? I can tell you, as you all know, I'm a part-time town attorney. I maintain a regular private practice. And in my private practice, because I've been doing municipal public entity work for 26 years, we are occasionally called upon to do these reviews, whether there's a complaint made against a town employee and it makes sense to farm it out, or there are myriad issues why municipalities want to farm out an investigation to have an independent review. Obviously, it wouldn't be appropriate for me as town attorney or my firm to do it because I am town attorney and I get consulted on these issues. But what we're talking about, as we heard from the members of the BAA respectfully tonight, are issues of Connecticut law. And so what you have to consider is this. You take municipal law, which is a unique area of practice. There's a small group of firms and lawyers that specialize that. And then you slice down further to those lawyers who focus on municipal tax appeals. It's a small group of lawyers. And so I was tasked with, all right, who would be an appropriate outside entity or firm or person to do this review? Again, we're talking about Connecticut general statutes. PA 490 is very complex, has a lot of nuances, and in order to really figure out these issues, you have to understand the interplay between the statutes, the case law, Supreme Court decisions, new legislation, personnel issues. And so the way you find the best neutral, independent, well-qualified outside person to do this is you could do an RFP or an RFQ and get the full range of candidates, and it'll take you weeks to get it out there, and then you're going to have to interview them, and you're talking months. Or you could do what we did. I was tasked with coming up with a short list of candidates. We narrowed it to 3. We started interviewing those candidates, and we weeded out 2 of the 3 because they had some association. Either they had matters pending with Enfield where they're adverse, or they had some association with the tax assessor's prior town. We ended up with a firm, Bircham Moses. It's a Milford-based firm. We put together a resolution to waive the bid requirement. We conferred with the lawyer at that firm who is an expert in tax appeals. He's ready to take on the assignment. We had it queued up for you to vote on tonight. But you want to table it, that's your prerogative. If you want to be more involved, if you want to add names to the list, matters not to me who you select. But just know that we heard the concerns and we agree we'd like to have an independent outside review. So we've done the groundwork. You can act on it tonight or you can table it and we'll bring it up another day. That's all I had to add.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just comment?
Councilor Santinello.
Yeah. So I would just like to say, Attorney Tallberg, through the mayor to the town attorney, I want to just say I respect you immensely, and I appreciate you taking on this work at the behest of some of the concerns that have been raised here. I'm going to just tell the council, I am prepared to move forward if the council feels that this involvement and the discussion here, and if there's no reason for us to go in executive session, if we want to have the conversation now and move forward tonight, I'm fine with that. But I'm not going to hear that we handpick somebody that was somebody's friend and that we are going to discredit the firm that has been recommended from the beginning. So if we can agree that that is the best recommendation from the town attorney, let's move forward right now. But I don't want to hear that we're sandbagging this from the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Over the weekend, once again, I have to, mention that, we got feedback from both of the caucuses in regard to wanting to table this matter. Mr. Tallberg gave us a very,
You're going to wait till the discussion. I mean, I think you're going to talk about why we're taking.
well, I have the floor right now. Excuse me. I have the floor right now. When it's your turn, I'll let you talk. All right? Excuse me.
I'm just recommending.
Well, I have the floor.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank
it is
you.
a valid point of procedure, a point
Excuse
of order.
me.
I think it's, we need to consider the point of order first. I think that's fair. It's just, we do.
No, you're wrong.
Excuse me.
Because the mayor is addressing an issue brought up by town attorney. That's where he is correct.
The only thing that I'm just going to be mentioning to Mr. Tallberg is thank you for your efforts in supplying everybody with this information that you just talked to, and we had all weekend to examine it. And I'm ready to move forward with it myself. So,
So we do feel strongly that the recommendation has no connections to anybody sitting on this dais, or we believe anybody sitting on your dais, to the audience or to the assessor and tax office. And that was the standard that we set, was that we want an unbiased, independent, and thorough review by someone who's qualified to make that. So with respect to the fact that I do know that many of you had expressed some reservations, I do think based on tonight's discussions, and really honestly, the staff of the assessors and tax office would welcome this as well, because again, there's multiple sides to every story. I would urge you to think about bringing that motion forward so that we can begin that work.
okay, thank you.